Hi, everybody. This is Aaron Mesh with Willamette Week. Today I'm speaking with Sharon Erez-Shai, who teaches Hebrew at Portland State University. Uh, Sharon, thank you so much for finding time with me.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
You moved to Portland from Israel, right?
I did. I moved out here 5 years ago. I love Portland. Actually, it reminds me a lot of Tel Aviv. It's got that youth vibe, lots of fun energy, um, lots of liberals. So
there, are,
yeah, we
there,
have,
are, there are a couple liberals in town. Yeah, I think that's fair.
oh, so we have a lot of that in Tel Aviv, the biggest city for pride parades this year. Really, it's like they're out there, no COVID anymore. So they're partying at that point now when things are settled a little bit. So I love Portland, and I started teaching at Portland. I started teaching 4 years ago, modern Hebrew. I enjoy it very much. The communication with the community, with the students, and yeah, it's a great experience.
Do you have family who's still in Israel? I assume you do.
I do, yeah. I have most of my family's in Israel, and my son is currently in Israel. My parents are there. We are most of us are there. It's pretty much me.
What's their experience been like with the conflict in the last few months?
Oh, that was very rough. That was a very rough experience. Was talking to my son. He was just wall climbing in Tel Aviv, sports, and then there were sirens going on, and they just had missiles on their heads out of nowhere. And I think that people don't quite understand when they're thinking, I mean, what would you do if you had someone aim at you from your borders, like from your backyard, just shoot missiles in the like center of the city, aiming at citizens. We were lucky to have the Iron Dome, which is totally a defensive system that was really protecting us. Because if we wouldn't have had that, since they really aimed everywhere, we'd have a lot of casualties. The estimation of about 30,000-40,000 casualties, and the numbers would look different if we wouldn't have had that, which is kind of what they're saying they're targeting for in the next round, which they're already working on. Yeah, so it was a hard experience. It was hard to be away, actually. It was hard to be here when things are so rough over there.
How often do you communicate with your son?
Oh, we're so happy to have WhatsApp these days. It's our favorite app. It's like you get to see on video, and got to see the missiles on their, on top of their heads, the lights, and you hear the engines, and you see the like all those flashes. It's like having Independence Day, just not on very happy grounds.
Hmm.
He had to find a way to get back home, and they're like everybody was kind of fleeing, and there was no public transportation at this point. He just found a scooter and managed to ride home with that. It was scary.
Like an electric scooter,
Yeah, yeah, like those we have here. I said it was pretty much like Portland. So no batteries were in most of them at that point, but he managed to get home safely. And also, I want to refer to the state of saying that Israel is like apartheid. Now, Israel these days is going to get a new government. Part of the government is going to be Arab parties. An Arab party is going to be part of the government with a minister. From the 120 parliament members in Israel, um, you have quite a large group of Arab representatives. Some of them do not think that the existence of Israel is rightful. I don't think there are many other democratic states, including in the US, that have members of the parliament, of their own parliament, that are actually voting against that party. So no, I mean, the Arab population in Israel has they're entitled to, they're like every other civilian in Israel. They get voted, they can vote, they can be critical. They can call that there's discrimination. Like here in America, and I'm sure they're right, but it's not apartheid. That is a democracy. And I truly, truly believe that people should distinguish. The Black Lives Matter movement should not be affiliated with Hamas, because they are not. I mean, I know that these days people are crossing the lines and trying to saying that it's like the same. It's the same argument. It is not. So whoever is.
I'm not sure I would agree with you that every pro-Palestinian march in the city of Portland is Hamas affiliated.
I am not saying that, but when you're saying free Gaza, no, I'm sure. First of all, I want to say Palestinians. I feel like Gaza Strip, the civilians there are suffering and need a solution. I'm just saying that if you have to free Gaza from something, it's not from Israel, because we are not in Gaza Strip. It has to be freed from Hamas. And when they have a Palestinian Authority that would probably take care, and if they would be able to invest the money in building instead of just fighting, if they will not say that it's a zero-sum game and it's either them or us, I think that we'd be able to get somewhere, because I think that most Israelis are calling for a solution. And we do have.
Can you tell me a little bit about the letter you recently received and
Yeah.
some feedback you're getting at Portland State?
Yes, there's the BDS movement that was actually founded by Barghouti, who is also a Palestinian leader, and calling. You can see some of his quotes. He's saying that he does not agree to a binational country because there's no binationals. He does not recognize in our nationality. He does not recognize in a solution that would be both countries. It's just, as I mentioned, a zero-sum game. And he is actually, they're calling for a discrimination, like to boycott everything that has to do with Israel, including academic speech. And I work at PSU. I was very sad to see a letter in my mailbox inbox circling for to sign a petition that calls for a BDS for actually boycotting Israel and Israelis. So what this really means, as I said, go back to the darkest part of the history, not enabling people to express what they have to say, to argue. We can argue, we cannot agree. We should argue if we don't agree. But the fact that they're saying don't enable an Israeli speak just because they're Israelis, I think is horrible. We had last year, Portland State, there was a tech fest. There was a representative came from Tel Aviv, from the city of Tel Aviv, about an app that is for the community, and wanted to bring it to Portland. And he wanted to get on stage, and we had all the effort to bring him in. He couldn't express himself because they didn't enable him to talk. And freedom of speech is like the basis of this community and of America and every democracy. And by agreeing to boycott that, I think this is like the lowest that we can get.
So BDS stands for, as I understand it, boycott, divestment, sanctions, right?
Demonization and sanctions, yeah.
Sorry, it's demonization, not divestment.
Divestment.
So could be either one.
Yeah.
At any rate, you saw that email. How did you respond?
So I emailed a response. I did not get into the political part. I really I focused on that, just the fact that, the people that are basically standing behind the BDS movement and what they are thinking. And I explained how I saw things, and I'm actually calling for freedom of speech and for actually not letting the extreme groups take over, because this is what happens. Both sides, by the way. I'm very critical towards the regime in Israel right now. I mean, the one that is hopefully ending its career. And also as you know, towards the regime in Gaza right now. And I wouldn't want to have them take over, which is really what's happening here. I emailed my response. I received a lot of letters. Most of them were just to me, but a lot of letters. People thanking me and saying that they felt unsafe recently with the environment going on in Portland and at PSU. Just by the fact that their colleagues were kind of responding the way they did. There weren't very many, but a few a few teachers, professors also responded by emailing everybody on that matter. I think that when people are calling to discriminate a community, they do not understand entirely what they're doing here. But the fact is that, yes, in this case, a whole bunch of teachers, I'm talking about professors, felt discriminated at PSU because of those circling letters. And most of them did not feel comfortable enough to go out and email back publicly and express their feelings. But I have them all here.
Have you felt an atmosphere of hostility at PSU around this issue?
I'm sorry?
Have you felt an atmosphere of hostility at PSU around this issue in your background?
So not in the past, not at all. I have to say that President Percy is, I think he's really great and amazing by his tolerance and his attitude, and I really, really appreciate what he's doing. I heard that back before I moved to Portland, there were some issues at PSU, but not since I moved here. This is actually the first time that I feel this way. And I know that Middle Eastern Studies brought in they hosted a Zoom meeting with Palestinians leading it, and they didn't invite us to do it. I wish they did. I wish they would make it like a two-sided thing. I think it's very popular these days to take a stand with the ones that are not as strong. In this case, it's not Israel, but and I do know that Oregon State also had a letter from the governor, from their student government, that called for BDS and Free Palestine. And as I said, there should be a Palestine, but it's not supposed to be freed from Israelis. We deserve to stay in our homes. We don't have to move away into America, into Europe, the way they kind of send us.